In a minute, we're going to go over Centrus, and we're going to look back because this is one of the stocks that I've covered since $4. So this hit 100 bagger status yesterday. The fact that, this did it in such a short amount of time, this is why I want to talk about it. And the fact that this stock still is a small market cap stock. And we've talked about it for a long time. This was January 2022, literally like the very first video of that year. And this was when, we were about to have some black swan events in uranium. And a lot of these stocks were like bottoming out, which was a great opportunity. And that's why we want to track these things, even if we're not investing. The other one, Rolls-Royce, which is RYCEF, Rolls-Royce RR, that one has been up 800 to even 1,000%. This stock obviously is not just like Rolls-Royce is not just a nuclear energy related stock with small modular reactors. They do, engines, and this was one of the ones that I still couldn't believe at the time. Now it's a $62 billion market cap, but I couldn't believe at the time it was, trading this low. This is the type of stuff you see when you track these stocks, right? This entire sector, the entire pretty much market, like being down today. If we're going up, there's some really good, deals, especially if you're swing trading. And if you believe this sector is going to go up in the future, long term. LEU, Centrus, it's a tight share structure. It's not giving me any deals, This has given me so many phenomenal deals. Look at this. So this is, people need to remember, before we start to get into this, that this sector, it's so tiny that one little thing in the market can literally give you, 80% down, right? From the peak in a very short amount of time. Like in market speak, this is not long, this thing bounces back long term, 40%, 50, 60, 70, 80. And within a short amount of time, this thing goes up 200% too, 90 days, right? So this is why we've been talking about these things, in the market, and we're seeing a new type of investor coming in. That's why share structure is so important. That's why it's a real big part of mine. And management, there's a lot of new things since we made that video. The management on here is phenomenal. The CEO, the previous CEO was, very impressive as well for Centrus Energy. They had the Department of Energy, former Secretary of Obama was their CEO. He's long gone, retired. Now we've got a very young guy, which is another name, Amir. I think we have the same name for UEC, which is another stock we cover for the CEO. So you got a lot younger guys, a very good speaker, very smart, obviously, but his prior experience just working with Urano and obviously, being the CEO previously, and is really, I think, one of the reasons a lot of new investors are starting to come in, because you've got his history and just the line of management. That's always something I like to look at. What did they do prior? Because then it's like, oh, Urano, they're, the leaders in nuclear fuel in that part of the sector, right? So he knows what he's doing. And before, I think a lot of people were kind of worried because the previous CEO, yes, he had ties to that sector, but he still had a lot of uncertainty, and the stock had pretty much reset at the end of 2015 and 2016. So, this was everything was starting over, and the fact that, they're really pushing SMR, small modular reactors. They're not just going to be a company and the reason why we're going to go over this too is they show the fuel cycle, and this is a very dry subject, and a lot of people who follow my channel for other deep value, sometimes they're like uranium, nuclear, they just think they don't understand the process. They think, oh yeah, there's a lot of, uranium out there. It's not something investable, but it takes a lot to mine this. And a company like this, they're one of the only ones really getting this. So the reason why I was, betting big, long-term on this was there wasn't much competition, and there's still really not as much competition compared to the small modular reactor sector, right? SMRs, they've got so much competition. When you look at this, just even portions of it, Lightbridge, right? LDBR is a ticker symbol. This stock's moved massively, right? This thing was $2 just recently, already up to $8, having a big pullback. These stocks will, especially because like I said, a lot of these people, I think a lot of the early buyers are uranium investors. And uranium investors, you're either long-term, you're just holding it forever. But I'd say a good portion of uranium investors know that there are massive opportunities on the pullback. And And just when the market itself, just in general, the big tech stocks, when they pull back just a little bit, or if the entire market pulls back, like Nvidia up 4% yesterday, it's literally down just 0.2%, right? It's not a big move, but because those stocks are so big, when they're down, like they can literally pull down the entire sector a little bit. But yeah, guys, this is why we track these stocks though. So if I'm looking to establish some positions here, I like to, in the past, if I'm like doing a swing trade, I might go in pretty big getting into the stock. But with like this stock, these types of stocks, I like to DCA in, right? Especially after a massive move like this. I mean, look at Centrus Energy is still up, right? 4% today. The eyes on these stocks, we've been seeing this move that I've been talking about since back here making these videos. And we're going to talk more about the entire sector. But since making these videos, a lot of these stocks, Lightbridge was another one we were talking about. And at the time, Germany was shutting down 3 to 6 of their nuclear plants. And a lot of things have changed since then. The amount of like positive news for uranium and nuclear energy and that part of the sector, it's just, this video would be like 50 hours if we try to cover it all. You don't have to know it all. Basically, the new governments and around the world, people that were not, really supportive of nuclear energy have really switched, thoughts on the process, because a lot of them are also invested in and believe in like AI. And this costs so much energy. AI, whether you're in, crypto type currencies, they use so much energy. And we've had, the fact that inflation's gone up. Having nuclear energy really can lower costs of all this. So if they don't want oil to go back up, $100, $120 over the next, few years, especially with tensions in the Middle East and stuff, nuclear energy is the best bet. And there's a lot of players. There's a lot of players in this. At the time, we were talking about SMR, and Rolls-Royce. These are a couple. Now, Lightbridge, they're making fuel rods. They're getting government support. And, uranium has pulled back slightly. But when the overall market looks at uranium, they see this, like everything's delayed. It's such an opaque market for uranium. And because there's so much investment coming from not just the US, but the entire world's really you're looking at the Eastern play, China, India, they're investing tons in nuclear. They're the big tech. I mean, entire $4 trillion companies, right, are investing in nuclear now as well. So this is something that I think a lot of us that has followed this for the past 4.5 years or so has seen coming and has said it. But now that it's starting to become like a mainstream thing, it's starting to, kind of wake people up. Now, long-term uranium prices, it's starting to do that little cup and handle, right? And it's crazy that we're starting to get to a nice support here, right? Because we hit about 106 during this time. There's a lot more to uranium than just the spot price of uranium, the long-term price, a lot of things, whatever the big companies are contracting, just to make it kind of simple. That's really what we're looking at, the price of other parts of the chain that we're going to get into. Because, just to make it simple, uranium ore mining, that's the very beginning process. There's a lot out there. There's like 1.1 billion pounds in the US that we know of that can be mined if uranium is sustained at like $100. But a lot of these companies that own the projects and stuff, they can't get into production just yet. That a lot of these companies have been raising, or they might have to raise money. We see uranium get to 200, where I think it's going to go. Long term, I think big oil companies are going to get into uranium production again. And they did this back during the last real nuclear energy renaissance. And this was some of the biggest oil companies in the world were actually mining uranium in the US. So it led to overproduction. The US government, there was way too many. And a lot of things have changed. Like they don't have, back then, the 70s and 80s, there was the Cold War and there was things going on. But a lot of the nuclear weapons were taken away and recycled, megaton to megawatts like program. And we saw a lot of that excess production start to go away. And not only that, a lot of the countries that have been shutting down like all of the nuclear plants, they've been reversing. Like Germany and all these countries that you thought would not want nuclear in the future because they were switching to, they were using, like Germany was using really bad coal, right? Red coal, stuff that was really bad for the earth. It's not very clean. So shutting down nuclear power plants that needed to be extended. And we saw the prices and inflation and stuff go up dramatically. And it's still happening in the US. Most places have seen like a 50 to 60% in the last year energy spike. Like utilities are like double in some places. It's, especially on the West Coast, energy prices have gone up a bunch because a lot of these companies, you got big tech companies, that's why they're going to be investing because they're using up so much electricity. There's wildfires, things have been going on. So they're taxing, everyday citizens, but you wouldn't have this necessarily as much if we could get the cost down. And so SMR, small modular reactors, are going to be key. Now, after uranium's mined, you go into this milling cycle. That's what they call yellow cake. Then they convert it to UF6 gas, right? And after that, that goes into enrichment. Okay, this is the process. Really quick, the LEU segment acting as a broker. So Centrus, in this first process over here, before it goes to reactor, they're going to be getting it. They're like a broker, right? So this is why a lot of people in the uranium sector didn't like the stock, but I still did. Okay, a lot of people in the past, they didn't like it. Oh, and by the way, good morning, everybody. We're going to get to the comments and stuff. And if you guys, this won't be like 4 hours, pretty much like we had in the past, right? It's gonna probably be around 2 hours today, but get your like questions in. If you want me to take a look at something, yeah, get it in there and we'll, especially if you guys are in the Discord as well, hop over to the chat, probably on YouTube. It's easier. If you're on Twitter as well, I'm multi-streaming so I can see it. So if you're listening on Twitter, you can type in a question. I'll be able to see it all in one place. YouTube, wherever you're at. But yeah, guys, this is exciting, especially when to be honest, like I usually like it when we have a down day. We're talking about a stock that's up again 4%, right? So, but the entire sector, there's a lot of good deals already, like down 12, 13%, because after this massive move, this is when I like to, even a small price, like if you're looking at, the options on some of these, there can be some good deals. Not investment advice. When the price of uranium goes up, remember that like uranium stocks that are tied to this, especially a uranium stock that's holding uranium, their leverage plays on the price of uranium, right? These stocks in uranium, because if they're holding uranium and the price goes up over $100, a lot of these companies got uranium. Usually, like UEC got uranium I believe it was in the 30s. A lot of their physical uranium in the high 30s. And when that happens, just think about the fact that they can sell that uranium back into, for contracting back into the market. And it also looks good for investors wanting to come in. So having that is really key. Yeah, that's this process, right? When you're mining uranium, a lot of those companies, but UF6, when they're actually, we'll get to this part in a second, but when they're selling as like a broker to utilities, they're getting a lot of this stuff. They were getting it from Russia. So we saw like Centrus Energy at one point go down to last year, like $24, right? And we were buying up big here during this. And it was right here. And then back in the year before that, when we had some of the black swans, we got down to $17. So there's like phenomenal opportunity, but it's volatile. Like they call it like rip your face off volatility, volatile stocks, right? Especially in uranium, because there's only 12.8 million shares in this particular stock. It's still a $1.6 billion market cap. This stock literally, what was it? September 9th, it's up like 190. I was almost up 202%, right? But yeah, there's no doubt. I think with this stock in a lot of uranium stocks, we'll probably see multiple times where the stock drops 50%. And the funny thing is, a 50% drop here, it's still $50. So like that peak in 2023 from here, it getting down to $50, that's in my opinion like a great opportunity long term for me to start probably averaging in again. And I've been waiting for this because you get more eyes on it when you become a 100-bagger status like this stock. There's so many more eyes on it. But here's the thing: when we were talking about small modular reactors, SMR, you got really big names too that are down today. Nanonuclear, Lightbridge. there's a lot of competition in this. You've got the big players, Duke Energy. I mean, these are like $91 billion market cap. Rolls-Royce now is, what is it? 67 billion, 63 billion. XT Technologies, they're like what, 11 billion. This is the competition in, in some purposes for LEU, Centrus, but there's not as much competition as if you're building reactors. So that was one of the big reasons that I liked a stock like this, is because let's see real quick. We're going to come back to that, but I want to show you guys. Let's see if they still have it in their, doesn't look like they have it in here, but we had it in our video. So let's see if I can bring it up here. On Centrus Energy, there's big competition. Yep, we did. Look, this is funny back in the day, but let me show you this chart. There it is. So look at the competition. The competition, these companies these are all big companies making reactors, right? Specifically. So BWXT, X Energy, Westinghouse, all of these are HALEU. And there's like 100+ companies submitting approvals to the DOE, Advanced Reactor Program. SMR's on here. Westinghouse, you've got, very big companies, right? X Energy. And these are sodium cooled, but all of these are literally HALEU, right? These big companies are going to need HALEU. So why would you to me, it's better to invest in the person that's going to be able to sell them the HALEU long term. All these companies are going to look at a company like Centrus Energy to be getting the HALEU, and in the future, having good deals with them. Now, right now, we're still really early. It looks expensive, but it's only a $1.6 billion market cap. And this is something that I think a lot of these companies, one of the reasons I think this company is still pretty strong, and I doubt it probably ever drops back. As long as uranium and there's not a big market pullback. If there's a big market pullback, this could drop back into the 20s. Very, just like last summer. And this was when I was buying in a play like this. I was heavily buying options. In the past, when it dropped down to here, I was buying shares. And when it was $4 and the exact same thesis here, I was buying shares. But options have gotten a little bit better in this market in general for me. Like I said, this is not investment advice. This is what I've been saying for a while. As far as the pullback, if there's a big pullback, say in the market into the election, I think this could get back down into maybe the 50s, which doesn't sound like a big move, but we're at 100, right? So like I said, down to 50%. It's probably going to have pretty good support here because a lot of these investors, long-term uranium investors, have been buying probably since I've been covering on this video. A lot of you guys probably watching this have. Yeah, it's great to see you guys too. I see the comments there. Yeah, let me know if you guys got any questions. This will probably be about a 2-hour stream today. Not 4 hours like the past couple days, but yeah, we're doing this every morning now. Just checking out the market, seeing what type of deals there are. A lot of good double-digit down percentage days for a lot of these stocks. Like I said, just because I cover a stock here does not mean I'm saying to get into it. Just like when I was doing this, right? These 4 stocks, most of them are up 500 to 800% since, right? Covering these, and even more initially because I covered some of these like Centrus Energy at $4 in the beginning. So when you are pretty much one of the only companies gonna be having these potential contracts in the future, and this is all speculative into the future. Like they're not making 100% deals with any of these companies yet. The U.S. government is giving them money. That's one of the big reasons it ran up, and the amount of money that they're getting is like the size of their market cap right now. Into the future. So the good thing is you have government support. And having government support is like one of the biggest things in this industry because there's a lot of volatility. That's why I think it's a little bit stronger than a lot of these companies that are just pure building small modular reactors, right? And so this is their August investor presentation. And what's great about a lot of times, if you're, say, a uranium investor or energy, or you invest in small modular reactors, nuclear energy, a company like this, they've got, look at the people on their board, like former CEO of Urano, which is the leader, right, in the industry. So they're going to have a lot of access to information, and not just information, but they're going to have a lot more eyes on them now that I think things are starting to move forward. When we're looking at this, some of the great things for me as a deep value investor. So stable cash flow with high growth opportunity. So LE's distribution business with complementary high growth technical solution business, significant barrier to entry to both businesses. So this company, like I said, there's not much competition for HALEU. It was pretty much at the beginning of this, it was like at the beginning of last year, it was the US government was the only one, and Russia making HALEU, right? So, hey, and Joe, you were asking if I'm doing the lives every day. Yeah, I'm going to be doing these every single day during the market, like Monday through Friday. But yeah, if you guys want more, we might be doing some more. We do lives in the Discord too, but as far as like you guys right now, I'm seeing people quoting from Twitter. Luigi says pullback on UEC around 50% and you're certain from this all-time high. For sure. That's why in the past couple of years I've been a uranium swing trader, uranium swing trader versus long-term investor. Like the prices though that I bought in March 2020, if I had just held a lot of those, I probably would have been better off. But when you have 50% pullbacks, I mean, there's big moves, big, potential to do well, right? Especially when the options, like one of the best plays last year was my Centrus Energy plays with the options in that. And yesterday I kind of like was going over that. But when you have a stock like LEU, these were some of the options like that I got like after the first day, after the drop to $24, it was down like 20 something percent, right? But some of the options I was able to get to at that point was already up like 500%. And the funny thing about Centrus Energy, like on this position, I got 100. I meant to put 1,000 on my stream deck. I had hit it and I thought it was 1,000, but I hit the 100, right? So it could have been a lot more, but it was a very small window because this was in June 1st, when a lot of people in uranium were like, Russian uranium ban, and the fact that they have ties to Russia with contracting, and they're starting to hedge themselves in other ways, and they get from the US government like waivers and stuff. So that was a thing that I knew. And following this since $4, I was like, let's go. And within one day you can make, 6 figures profit. And if you know what you're doing, right? When you have flash crashes like that. So that's why I love this sector. Look at some of the other stocks though in this, like down 13-14% just today, right? This is a new stock, so I'm gonna have the history. But Oklo as well, down 13%. So these three. Now I've never traded these options, and I don't think Lightbridge, I don't even know if they have options. But yeah, just put a cash secured put on AAP. Adam, yeah. What would you say, Curse? How do you find companies that are worth researching? So with this company, Centrus Energy, so LEU, so it was hated, right? When I started investing at $4. The way sometimes I find is like this, like stock screeners. Now this is like my watch list, but a lot of times, because I'm a deep value investor, I like to look for stocks that are down a bunch, not that much, right? But as far as like my watch list, I have a universal stock watch list that I use that, like today, Azincourt's down 28%. These are stocks like that I've tracked, right? I like to track stocks, and that's how Keith Gill was able to almost be a billionaire, right? From a retail investor, had a couple $100,000 in the market in 2019 in his family's fund. And, he turns that into, in over 4 years, one in a billion, right? That's able to do this, but he would have never been able to do it if he wasn't tracking them like this. He didn't have, and when the opportunity presents himself. Keith was a product of the market he was in, right? But yeah, have a good time at work, Luigi. We'll catch you later. And yeah, this will be on YouTube later, guys, if you need to watch it. Watch it in 1.5 or 2x speed too, because we're going to try to touch on a lot of stuff. But this is how I find stocks like this a lot of times. Now, uranium, I already knew about the stock back in March of 2020 was when I was going big and doing a lot more research on these things. And I put this up yesterday, I think it was, going into uranium. Like this was April of 2020. And I was posting that, like uranium looks like it's in a new bull market. So all of these stocks, I'd invested in like 40 or 50 uranium stocks. $200 uranium, I think is going to be, it's going to come. People laughed at me, back in the past. They're like 200. No, it won't. Like we just saw 106, earlier this year, beginning of the year, and things, there's still $500 million in contracting that needs to happen. Right. Yeah. First move advantage. The other thing is only company with the NRC license for HALEU production. to supply commercial and national security needs. The only company, it's the only company, right? They hold a monopoly. Why? Because their Manhattan Descendant project established global support for nuclear power plants, delivered 179 kilograms of HALEU already to the DOE. So that's why the stock moved from 24 to, not too long ago to now 100-ish. But, looking back at this, if you guys see this in the future, this thing will pull back 50%. No doubt. This thing's going to pull back 50%. I don't know when, whether it's with the market or if there's another black swan event. But on this uranium bull market run, all of these stocks likely, just like some of y'all said in the comments earlier, Luigi says pullback on UECs around 50% is certain from this all-time high, he thinks. I agree. That's the uranium market, though. If you look at the chart on uranium, it's always been that way. You've always had 25 to 50%, even with the price of uranium going up, because it's such a small market, right? We've said this many times. These small modular reactors, they're not in uranium, but they're still kind of in that sector. They might be included in ETFs that are looking to get involved. That's another reason why a lot of this moves. And global support for strong bipartisan support in both executive and legislative branches of the U.S. federal government. Established global support for nuclear power plants. LEU distribution business produces strong cash flow. That's another thing. That's why it's on my radar. That's why you were asking earlier, Curse, how do I find these? It's literally a free cash flow potential machine, right? And I love that for my deep value plays. What about UEC? Perez, you said, and uranium being used for AI? Oh, for sure. So the use for uranium, okay, because we were talking about like the cycle, like you're talking about the use of uranium ore. This is the full process. That's why from mining it out of the ground, which is very hard to do, that's why uranium prices can go very high, because it's a long process just to get the permits. It's radioactive. It's not like gold. A lot of people make the mistake thinking, oh, there's 1 billion pounds in the US. It's like gold. It takes forever to mine, to enrich, convert to UFC. You got to enrich it. You got to fabricate it into fuel, pellets, and then you got to sell it. A lot of companies in uranium, they don't even have the uranium mining yet. And these companies are up 3,000% or something since I was, buying these initially. A lot of these. This is literally just, just in a short amount of time, a lot of these have moved a bunch. And the average of the top like 20 uranium stocks is 1,000% since I was buying them, like I showed you guys on that tweet. Now, a lot more people are looking at these, but a lot of these companies don't even have production in uranium yet. Some explorers don't even have uranium found yet. It's all speculation. But remember, these companies are leverage plays on the price of uranium. So when uranium goes up, if a company like UEC is holding uranium, the stock's going to do really well. But as far as using it for AI, we know that UEC holds uranium. We know that these AI companies are going to invest in probably small modular reactors. They're not going to be buying uranium or anything. They're not going to be like, oh, this uranium or pellets, UF6. It's not like they're going to need that specifically for AI. They're not going to be running robots or something necessarily, not that we know of, on a uranium pellet or something. Like, you got to have a reactor and stuff. So they're looking more for small modular reactors, stuff that's kind of portable. What'd you say, Cursed? Roaring Kitty walks so Derek could run. I've learned so much from Roaring Kitty, and I'm so proud to say that. Like his lives, he's had like 700 hours worth of lives, and I've seen every single one, studied it, learned a lot from him. He's got more credentials. The funny thing, he's got more credentials than like Jim Cramer. Like we're talking like legit credentials that were active and stuff. I even think Michael J. Burry, I think he's got more. I think he's got like 8 or 9 different credentials. So yeah, people called him dumb money, which is, I think it's such an oxymoron, because like he was one of the smartest guys in the market and was saying things like, just take away GameStop. Who cares about that? Like, yeah, he made 500 million plus on a small move, right? On a small position into a huge move. He walked so I could run. That honestly, you know what's crazy? Speaking of running, that dude almost had the world record for the one-door indoor mile, right? He was like 19 seconds away from breaking it, which is incredible. Like almost a sub 4-minute mile, right? That's awesome. It's a guy like drinking beer, right? There's like Marines, like I had Marine buddies when we were like in Aircrew Candidate School for Rescue Swimmer School, NAS. We'll get back on subject, but real quick, but there were guys that we'd run like, we do our PT tests and stuff and run them, a few miles. And these guys were smoking cigarettes right before they ran and stuff. And then they could outrun people. Like they could run like a 5-minute mile easily. Yeah. What's up, guys? See a lot of people come jumping in, joining. But yeah, so hey, Fat Chin, your channel's incredible. You said underrated, and I believe your subscribers will come in due time. From one Derek to another. Oh, Fat Chin, your name is Derek too? Sweet. Yeah, I'm trying to get to y'all's questions or comments. I learned from you guys. Some of you guys are super smart. Sometimes you never know. Like Tom Lee, he might be watching this right now because I'm live on X too. So what's up, Tom? If you're watching this, Tom Lee's way smarter than me. I don't know if Tom I don't think Tom follows too much in like the nuclear sector. So, maybe he'll look into it. But yeah, you never know who's watching. You never know who's when you're doing these things. But some of the best people, they doesn't necessarily mean they're hedge fund managers all the time. But yeah, I like to just, I think the funny thing is like I think being a contrarian, a lot of times if you do the research, you can be right big time on a lot of stuff like uranium, right? A lot of these stocks. But yeah, my channel's not. My buddy Lewis Morgan was like, Derek, you should talk about other stocks like Kevin Paffrath, meet Kevin. But then I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to like Planet Fitness. Like a lot of these stocks, Tattooed Chef, like went bankrupt or down like so much. It's like, yeah, he got millions of dollars from ad revenue from that, but it messes with you as a person, especially if like people are like, you see in his comments like, you made a video about this and now like I don't have a retirement. Like I used to jump out of helicopters to save people's lives. Like I care about people. Like it's a big deal like that. So like I've been cautious about what I talk about. And in the past, I've maybe, I made some videos on some stocks that just because, I saw more people talking about it, but they literally were like uranium. They were something I had been talking about for a while. A sulfuric acid shortage can affect uranium production. 100% liver. The acid companies, I don't follow specifically the specific companies, just kind of in general, like, and if you're following uranium and you're following, kind of like just the basics, you'll hear things about it. And sometimes all these things can really affect it. Yeah. People like me, Kevin, are getting a lot of backlash as they aren't really genuine anymore. Yeah. I mean, not to hate on anyone, but like, yeah, when you start off like he did flying, now you have a private jet, flying in a private jet, trying to relate to retail investors. It's like, it's a little rough. And yeah, coming from like he was big in real estate, like working out of his truck, little construction company, and like one of the youngest real estate investors, pretty successful at the right time at the right place. Like if there was a bear market in real estate, like he probably wouldn't have been making YouTube videos or got popular because that's kind of where he started. But his stuff was really genuine back then. And I think on this channel, like we'll probably cover stuff like more broad on the market. We're talking about uranium, nuclear fuel today. And that's what a lot of you guys wanted. That's majority of my subscribers. But deep value, a lot of this kind of crosses with deep value. And yeah, a lot of these things are something that if you track for a long time, you start to see. Yeah, Al, you said Kramer's got no credentials. He's paid to shill stocks. Well, I mean, little do people know, Kramer used to be like a hedge fund manager, so he's got past credentials. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows for the most part. Like when he was crying with Meta, do you really think he was like when it was at under $100? That was when I was buying and he started crying. Do you really think that to me, that was kind of like a show. That was maybe to get it to under $100. But he was also saying literally to buy at the peak, like of the previous peak of Meta. So who knows? This stuff can get to you. That's another thing. Like I can look back and say, oh, what videos did I talk about? I talk about these. Oh, they're up 1,000%. And the great thing about uranium is my very first post of pretty much talking about uranium, these stocks are up 3,000%, some of them. So like, if anyone ever says anything, it's like, dude, I'm not telling you to buy. I'm not telling you to sell anything. Nobody cared back then. Like when I was talking about this stuff, and when we're still here today talking about it. Right. So yeah, it's a long process though for uranium. And yeah, Kersey said the fact that Jobs is selling to the viewers, not actually trading the stocks. Yeah. A lot of people, like they're selling courses, they're selling those things. That's why I've never done anything like that. Even though it'd be nice to like break down my process, I do that stuff for free. Like one of my videos where I kind of show how my investing thesis crosses with Keith Gill and how I kind of like training with him over the years. It kind of like brought me to be a way better investor, find deals like Meta at 88 and going big when other people were like saying, oh, it's going to drop another 50%. which could happen, in this market, especially a lot of this stuff. Yeah, Curse, funny people were calling, Keith dumb when they'll never really achieve his success, right? Yeah, this ain't the Roaring Kitty show, right? He knew what he was doing too. Like, he knew that he had a little bit of a following. He made those memes for a reason. And a lot of it was, hey, to show people like, my thesis played out from the very beginning. His thesis played out. So my uranium thesis is starting to play out. Now I learned from a lot of people, but some of the same people I learned from, they said this stock was trash. In fact, a lot of people out there in uranium said this stock, they were shorting it. They said this stock was, because they did deals with Russia, they said the stock was trash. They were literally shorting it. So I was one of the only guys talking about this at $4. And in fact, anytime I would talk about it or anyone would mention it, no, people literally would say all the time, like, would basically say like, don't include that with uranium. Like, it's not, like John Quakes, one of the best, people that covered uranium wouldn't even cover it. And like and we could search in here and you could see, I don't even know if he still has the tweets up, but you can search it in here. And he was literally saying because of the ties to Russia and the fact that they're not mining uranium, right? They're in this process down here supplying the companies. But the segment, a lot of this is changing. They're going to be, no one saw coming doing these things with the DOE where they're actually the only one able to sell, right? And that's a big deal because that's like being a uranium producer going from like a uranium explorer or someone just buying uranium in the market and then reselling, which companies do. And yeah, you have Centrus Energy that's going to actually be enriching your uranium, LEU, and HALEU. Jack, you said I'm in Centrus all down for DQ. Yeah, let's do this, man. Know that this stock, for people tracking this stock, it's going to be a volatile move. We are, like I said, we are literally, a lot of these stocks are nice pullback. Look, it's already down. Look at that. 4.9%. So we've had the move today. This was up like 5%, right? It's already down 10% from the high today, right? So this was up like over almost 5%, right? Starting the day. And just 2 days ago from where it was, this thing was up like 17%, right? Now, I think a lot of this volume or day traders as well coming in because they can see that this market cap is so small, they could push it up. So a lot of this volume, but who's also buying this up? Big hedge funds that are DCA in that can't buy, big shares without moving the stock like this. Like this day, you probably had hedge funds starting to come in. But the other reason is I know how this stock trades. That's how I was able to go in that much with options. Some of those were short-term options, which I rarely do. I usually only buy leaps, but when you see an opportunity like a flash crash like that, it's pretty interesting to play. It's a lot of fun, right? So the future of HALEU production, and this applies, like I said, to a lot of the other companies that are potentially looking to get into this sector. Companies that are still producing fuel, like BWXT is another stock I think that's on this. That's a ticker, right? BWXT. So they do a lot of other things as well. But yeah, as you saw when I did this video, the other companies that are going to be looking to buy HALEU, there's not a lot of companies that are going to be able to make it. And like we said, they're the only ones that have actually sold to the US government, right? And so the future of LEU production and other uranium enrichment in the future for national security missions, they also leverage their technical capabilities to provide a range of other products and services for public and private customers. So their operating structure, this is another thing I really like about them. So the future production of existing reactor fleet is $4.3 billion per year, potentially. You're talking about $1.4 billion stock, $1 billion right now with the fluctuations pretty much. Big upside. A future uranium enrichment for the U.S. national security purposes, that's potentially $3.1 billion to $4.8 billion. A lot higher than we were seeing. See, these projections are a lot higher going back to our old video. Whoops. Current and future HALEU production for the next generation small modular reactors and micro reactors, that's $6.2 billion potential per year by 2035. So a lot more than they were projecting back when we first started covering it. National laboratory and other government entities is the other structure. And the last one's untapped market for engineering, advanced manufacturing, and other technical services for commercial entities. So yeah, it is a real deal, Jack. And still can't get over that this is the Manhattan Project descendant. So cool. Yeah, so you can see here the financial snapshot. There's another reason why I really like the company like Deep Value. the backlog as of June 30th for contracts, options, and LOIs is 2.7 billion. So like take it with what it is, but that's phenomenal. That's big opportunity. That's long-term investors like looking at this and being like, okay, this is pretty safe. And new LEU cells commitments in 2023, including the backlog, was 189 million. Annual net income growth from 2017. So we're talking about from when it was $1 to 2023, 38%. Not bad. A reduction in annual SG&A. This has been good. 7.5 million. It's down. So in deferred tax assets, net valuations 22.2 million. That was as of June. So the finance side, it's deep value. I like it. They do this, and they've been doing this since we made the video way back then. They like to include all of the support from bipartisan support and the amount of publications. These are way higher now. This was from August. There's been a bunch more. Now the headline is not just on Bloomberg. U.S. reactors fuel makers gets 2.7 billion in funding bill. It's like we're talking about big time multi-trillion-dollar tech companies investing in small modular reactors, and so they're going to need the fuel. SMRs, these are going to use HALEU. And expected growth in nuclear over the next 3 decades without new climate policies is already going to be 40% of what we got now. And then to achieve net zero, it's 3x that, tripling the U.S. nuclear generation by 2050. 100% nuclear would have to more than double 100% to meet the global climate targets, right? And 9 out of the 10 reactors selected by the DOE Advanced Reactor Program operate on HALEU. And I've been saying that since the beginning. I was like, that's why I was telling people, I was like, you know what? I like HALEU. I like that investment in the long term. People aren't really talking about it yet. And I think that I would rather be investing in a stock that's not just competing with other small modular reactors, but they're able to sell HALEU in the future to these companies. All these companies are going to want it. So that's another thing. And a lot of this is like, this isn't just for Centrus Energy. This is talking about the entire uranium sector. This is some of the things that are happening behind the scenes as well. And trying to kind of like, because you can get in depth and know really a lot of the numbers and how the fuel market works. That doesn't matter at all. Just because you know all that stuff, just because you follow it, doesn't mean you're going to be able to trade it, because look at the volatility in this. The real thing is being able to have this thesis long-term, seeing when the opportunity in the market gives you a good deals and reacting to that, right? And not letting the black swan events like 2022 get to you, or last year, the other black swan, 2023, June of 2023. And yeah, people see their HALEU segment, but their LEU segment is big too. Stable cash flow generation from market leading cost position, distribution business with leading positions connected to the full value chain in years of experience developing relationships. That's a big thing. I think a lot of people underestimate that. That applies to uranium stocks too. A lot of these uranium companies, a lot of these do not, like, just because they find uranium and say they eventually get it does not mean they're going to be able to sell that uranium. Okay. You gotta make deals with these utilities and stuff. And like someone like Deep Yellow, they're going to get good deals, right? John Borshoff, he knows what he's doing. People are going to listen to him. And so when this developer gets into production, they're going to do well, kind of like Paladin did. But the funny thing is, Paladin, his old company right here, they only produced at the peak of the uranium bull market, they only produced 200,000 pounds, right? Because by that point, like, you know, it was a real quick peak bull market for the most part in price and then back down, right? So that was something that a lot of people, I don't think, really expected to know. Like if you're looking back, a lot of these uranium companies, they went up 1,000%, but they didn't produce a thing. So now that we have a long-term bull market, we don't know what uranium valuations, market caps, 3.3 billion for UEC. We don't know if this thing can get and get up to like a small, you know, oil company, right? Because if their leverage plays on the price of uranium and they hold, you know, millions of pounds of uranium, and the billion pounds out there that they're looking to mine in the US, and they get a good portion of that. I mean, there were 76 million pounds of uranium, you know, in the late 70s that was mined, you know, at the peak, right? There was a lot. Military micro reactors are all going to be used HALEU as well. Naval reactors, HEU, it's a lot higher enriched uranium. And the non-proliferation, so research, reactor conversion, space missions, that was another thing we were talking about. That was something, I think my first Rolls-Royce video, we were talking about space mining and Rolls-Royce potentially there being small modular reactors used in space, on the moon, you know, Mars maybe, because they're going to pretty much have it, right? the other thing, reactor demonstrations using HALEU. So U.S. utilities purchased 4.1 million Russian origin SWU in 2023, 27% of the U.S. demand in 2023. So the fact that it was Russian shows that you need a U.S. supply, right? Long-term supply contracts for SWU with Russia, 10X and French Orano enrichment companies. And what I liked is the CEO was the previous CEO of Urano, right? That specific company is the leader, along with 10X. Centrus' diverse base of enrichment supply includes inventory, medium and long-term supply contracts. These are big in uranium, right? And spot purchases. It's not uranium. You said, Netiv, you said it's not uranium, but any opinions on lithium Americas? We'll talk about it. We talked a little bit about yesterday. I'm not really too bullish right now on like lithium and stuff. There is enough lithium. There's enough like just in Las Vegas, like area, Elon has said, and that stuff's not as hard to mine as uranium. So that's why I think the fact that uranium, and it's very hard to mine. It's very hard to get the permits. It's very hard to process. It's very hard to sell. I say hard to sell, but like companies, just because they have it doesn't mean they're going to be able to sell it. So that's a big, because they have these contracts already. That's why kind of we're talking about it today. Yeah, lithium doesn't mean that I think that it's not going to be needed or anything. It's just there's a lot of competition. And I think we've kind of already had a lot of these stocks in lithium, a lot of the stocks in REs and those type of things ran in 2020 into 2021, 3,000% in some of them already. So a lot of that stuff, I think it's kind of like it's kind of had its time already. And then the shortfall, estimated restricted regions for LEU demand shortage. There's a big percentage by the time you get to 2025 into 2030, right? So LEU shortfall, 7.2 million SWU, 5.1 million by 2030. And then LEU supply, 21.7 million. And 23, that's still not that much, right? So there's a big demand coming up. And only Centrus would be able to supply the US government. That's another thing. It's a monopoly. It's a monopoly right now for national security purposes. They can't just buy, like the US government can't just buy, they're not going to buy this stuff from Russia, right? Especially for nuclear weapons or, nuclear reactors, US military reactors, HEU. So you're not going to have that. The only Centrus Energy can do it, right? And then non-proliferation agreements prohibit the use of foreign enriched technologies for national security. You can't buy from Russia, right? A domestic technology is required. They're a monopoly. Getting in, at the bottom in a company that's literally a monopoly, that's why I was buying this hand over fist back in the day. But, then it drops, when it hits 88, it drops 80% almost, right? So you're going to have opportunities multiple times. Long-term investors, they're still doing really well, right? Someone that can hold this. But the demand, look at the chart demand. This is huge for HALEU. You guys seen it here first, right? And this ties to uranium as well. This is gonna be by 2035, literally metric tons MTU, 614, right? Right now, next year it's only 26, right? 26 now, 614, and just look at 2030. So that's coming up, and within the next 5 years, right? 215. Only companies with NRC license for HALEU production to supply commercial and national security needs. That's Centrus. And this estimate suggests a total market value of about 2.2 billion a year. So more than when we last did our video on Centrus. And by 2030, it's 6.2 billion a year by 2035. So as right now, they're the only ones. So if we're saying that they would supply this entire amount, 6.2 billion a year, what's their market cap right now, guys? What are they going to trade in the future if they're bringing in 6.2 billion, what's their market cap potential? I mean, we're going to probably look back at this and be like, why wasn't I buying hand over fist at 100? A lot of people will probably say, why wasn't I buying hand over fist when this was at 24, 33, literally recently, back last year, 24 or 17. We were buying it at this. We've sold. We were buying it at this. We sold. We were buying back here and sold at 4. So I think I got actually some for 3 a little bit during this time, because I was buying everything in uranium at this point and fuel, the fuel side. The market cap, 1.5 billion. So if they're bringing in, if they could just say like 50% of that, they're bringing in a few billion a year. just from the HALU. I mean, what do you think the valuations on this are going to be? I think it's going to be big. It's going to be nice to come back to this video again, like we did with this one, when these stocks are up 800, 1,000%. Will they be a lot bigger? Potentially, right? And we'll talk about, I think another thing I'm going to be covering in this video is some other talking heads, in uranium, and kind of going over my takes on what they're saying. Because a lot of times you get a lot of different opinions, but this sector is very dry, very boring. There's only so much you guys want to take to hear about when you're talking about uranium, you're talking about the fuel sector. Yeah, a lot of you guys, you said, what is it, Baston? You said, what are the thoughts on Lightbridge? We'll kind of go over it. They're making the fuel rods for this. So like when you have like the pellets, and they're getting funding from the US. So when you fabricate into these fuel pellets, these go into the rods, and they have a special process like Lightbridge for the rods. So they're like a part of this, but they're not doing any of this in this part. Any thoughts on playing it? GSX Router, you said through the nuclear ETFs. See, the ETFs, I can't tell you guys what to buy or sell, but like that's another reason a lot of these stocks have been going up. That different ETFs, or they're not necessarily pure play in the uranium sector or nuclear sector. There's other things sometimes they have, right? And the fact that these other companies are also in the sector. A lot of the times they're, if you don't want to try to have to find the best stock or keep up with that, then yeah, like an ETF is an easy play. There's leverage ETFs too, 2X, that you can play. They've done well. I have friends that invested in those. Along with individual stocks, right? Like my buddy Lewis, I think he put a few million in Centrus back, maybe when it was sub $20. I think it was like 15, maybe a little less. And he still holds it. And that's the thing, when you're a long-term investor, you don't get really shaken out in this. And that's the cool thing when you hold this long-term, and you do your homework. But if you can't do that, if you don't want to do your homework and you don't like the volatility as much, yeah, ETFs are usually the way to go. A lot of the nuclear ETFs or the uranium ETFs, right? Yeah, the nukes seems like a meme, right? Yeah, so does SMR, right? So this is what you're talking about. I thought I had this in here. I do, don't I? Yeah, and it's pulling back too. But as far as the problem with ETFs sometimes too is they should never, a lot of the ETFs, a lot of the leverage ETFs, they're not really long-term holds because of dilution, because of the way it works, right? That's why I like to do my homework myself too. It's the best performing ETF though. It's one of the best, right? You could see just since this is already up 69% from, yeah, it was like January when they started this. I remember seeing it. I thought I added it to the list. We could add it to the list. A lot of these are already buying up stocks like Centrus and a lot of these. See, but I mean today a lot. Some of them are down double digits. So, and then the ETF, if these are down double digits, sometimes the ETF from open, it's down a little bit less, 1.6%, but from their peak, it even actually was up higher in pre-market. So someone here, they're already down 5%. But I mean, that's ETF for you. It is a lot of them. When I made my uranium documentaries, I would say that I think a lot of the meme players are going to get into this. So names like Mega Uranium, Nukes, SMR, they're going to be big movers because their name is like built into it. And that's kind of like what a lot of people follow. That's why a lot of people were able to find this. They're like, oh, looking up SMR stocks. And it's like, oh, there's a ticker with SMR. Oh, it's nuclear. And, people pile in, right? When LEU dropped back in the 40s, you said, Jack, load up more. When LEU drops back in the 40s, yeah, we can't tell people what to do, but every time I've bought a massive dip, I've made tons of money on Centrus Energy. I showed earlier the options, right? I think if you guys are like just tuning in now, yeah, look, this was a screenshot from just the like day after when that dropped. The percentages on some of them were long term. These went into January of 2024 at the time, but some of these shorter term ones, like June, was already up 500%, right? So yeah, but you can't do those type of plays unless you really know what you're doing, because you can lose a ton of money too. And we didn't know if the price was going to drop even more, but when the stock drops 20 something, 25, 30%, and I know that the market is wrong. I knew that when Centrus Energy was dropping that low, that for one, it wasn't even that much volume when it dropped to this. It's not that much volume. Look at the little tiny candle. I mean, this is phenomenal. So I was able to literally at the exact second get out, and I let everyone know. I was like, guys, I'm buying this. What do you guys' take? Because we have a community, right? A lot of smart people. You never know who's like potentially like gonna find something like this. And that's the cool thing is when you're tracking it, you're like, you see this flash crash. I looked into specifically what caused it. The US government potentially doing Russian uranium ban, which I had been talking about for a year and a half at that point. And I knew that they could get waivers. So I was like, done. But need that long-term thesis and stick to it, Jack. Yep. The long-term thesis is what this is all about. But you're going to have 50% pullbacks all the time in this, all the time. I mean, even more back here, like I said earlier, from the peak in 2021 at 88 all the way down to, 80%, right? In a short amount of time. This was rough. This was rough. I knew a lot of people because I talked about it since here. So people were buying all throughout, like a lot of new investors were coming in. But, if you bought it back way back in the day, you're fine. But the long-term thesis is what it's all about. So when you have a pullback a little bit, you're going to be set. But yeah, I think because the stock's just, it's very tight share structure. A lot of day traders are coming into this, right? But national security is the main key. And the opportunity back on the charts, HALEU, Centrus has LEU, HALEU, and HEU. So high enriched uranium opportunity. And that's up to 4.8 billion. And then the global utilities, they think it's about this per year. LEU is like a 1.9 billion. Advanced reactors, this is the big thing. This is one of my big long-term thesis. So 6.2 billion per year by 2035, potentially. And LEU for US reactors is a 2.4 billion per year. And a lot in the past, they've been broker, right? And 3.3 billion federal investment in LEU and HEU. And we've been covering this since the beginning, when they were just bills, right? And Inflation Reduction Act, there was 2.7 billion and 600 million for HALEU. And a lot of people, a lot of retail investors that are just looking at nuclear, they're not going to necessarily know all these things. But, we've been knowing this for multiple years. That's why, when these things got approved, we knew that they were in the process. That's why I tracked them, a lot of the bills and stuff. And the Russian uranium ban was a double-edged sword. Caused the stock to drop like crazy, right? At one point. And then it rockets up because then it's like, oh yeah, but, we could get waivers or, we can now sell to the US government. We're the only company that can do that, right? And the US government's not going to obviously be able to buy from Russia that specific for national security. So it was a double-edged sword. So it presented an opportunity and then had a solution. So that was kind of cool. You usually don't have that in a sector like this, right? So the next thing, the LE segment overview. So broker, a trader business. This is the one that a lot of people hated the company for because they were broker, right? At the times they weren't actually supplying stuff. Now they are. They're actually making it themselves, right? So this was thing, I think that because a lot of their customers, there's another thing, leading Fortune 500 companies. Now we got a potential that the biggest companies in the world are going to be working with them for their small modular reactors by being a broker trader. They're the world's most diversified supplier of enriched uranium, they claim, right? Which they are. And then this is the biggest thing. This is why this was one of the biggest things. Business with relationship with 35 nuclear utilities. A lot of these uranium companies don't have these relationships and they will never get them, especially if you're an early producer or explorer. You got explorers, then you got developers, and then you got producers in uranium. So like producers usually have the contracting. They've done it before a lot of times, like, Paladin. But then there's issues. You have issues. So like if you do research, Paladin literally had issues there in Russia at their plant and only produced at the peak 200,000 pounds of uranium, right? They had contracting. And it's also when you do your contracting. A lot of companies like Cameco have already contracted out a lot of their uranium supply. So if uranium prices go higher, they could even lose out and potentially have issues, right? And companies that are waiting, maybe UEC that are waiting for supply contracting, they might have a better opportunity. So there's a lot of stuff in uranium a lot of people don't know. Same thing with being a broker, right? Being in the trade business. But there's a lot of money in it, right? And a lot of people overlook this part, the business relationship. A lot of these CEOs of these uranium companies, they're going to have issues. And the fact that there's a big light being shed on uranium, when it goes over 100, everyone's looking at it and they're saying, hey, developer, why are you not getting, or producer, why are you not getting into production in uranium? Prices are high. Hey, explorer, I thought when it was this high, you're able to, raise some money and explore more. But no, it usually doesn't. Yeah, SMR is the only one that has approved reactor model line. Yeah, a lot of the moves. Now, when you say only approved reactor model, a lot of these companies have submitted and got the license. So there's a process. Just because some of these companies that are making reactors, the model is approved, but they don't have license contract. So like Rolls-Royce, like a lot of these, and I go over this in the video. I think I go over this. Look, for HALEU is going to be very large. This like crazy. You know, the U.S. government needs other companies out back into this out there that are making specifically reactors, TerraPower, you know, Bill Gates, X Energy. You know, there's going to be a big market for this. Now you see this? This was back then, right? Research Test Reactor, NRC, pre-application and licensing review. So all these companies like that had a square around them were also pretty much what SMR had, right? So all these companies are competing with them, and SMR is not the only one, right? They're not the only one with the approved reactor model either. And they don't have the license. This is a licensing review. This was way back in January. So the competition is massive. And that's another reason. Not only was the stock going down to $1 this company has other plays and stuff, right? Other things, other pipelines. But the reason why SMR went down so much was not just because there was a federal investigation, but there was also management was dumping literally at the bottom. But you're saying Lion Atlas, SMR is fully licensed. There's more of a process to that. We're talking about the NRC license back in 2021. All these other companies that got the exact same thing. So there's big competition. SMR is literally not the only one. They are first move because they started this process sooner, and they also have the name SMR, so they're going to get more eyes on it. All of these other companies also got their licensing review, and they've got it as well. A lot of these other companies, these are big companies too, some of these, right? That have already applied. So, and all of these green, all of these are HALEU. So yeah, that's the thing. And when you look into the trade side, like we're talking about the broker side, for them, they're able to do deals with, if SMR in the future is going to be actually have these reactors, and they're going to be potentially, maybe because they front load a lot of this, maybe they'll be able to supply them. That's why I like to go to the dealer, the person, the trader, the person that's actually able to not only make this, but also sell it right to them, versus competing, because that list is huge. And this is one of the reasons it dropped too when they're under investigation, because people saw that there's a big companies going against them. And then when you have management selling, that's a little, you know, iffy on the stock when management is literally dumping entire way down, right? So it's different. If you believe in your company, you're a new listed company, right? You got this ticker name, you got licenses for your reactors, government support. Why are you dumping the stock all the way? Who makes the reactors for the US military? There's a lot of different companies on this list. ST makes a bunch. There's like Triso fuel. There's like this new fuel too that won't melt down, right? So BWXT was one of them. But they also, like a lot of these companies also do other things in nuclear, like clean up, recycle fuel as well. So Raytheon also, I think there's a bunch of companies like this that do that. This is a nuclear utility. So like there's multiple plays like Duke Energy. I have these in here, reactor fuel. There's a lot of different companies. Constellation Energy. You can see a lot of these are big companies, $83 billion market cap, 92 billion from Duke Energy. And they've seen a big move too on the upside because people starting to see now like, oh, you know what? Utilities, nuclear utilities, the ones that are actually like Duke, they're doing really well, right? And when there's hurricanes and stuff, things are looking pretty positive for them, right? Long term. They can make a lot of money. And they have 35 business relationships, Centrus Energy does, right? With these utilities, 35 plus nuclear utilities. That's a lot, right? That's a lot for a small company like this. So that's one thing. They built the only US facility license to produce HALEU, already licensed for LEU production as well. Going back to the license, capacity is scalable too. So like, yeah, it's not that much right now, but as time moves on, they're going to need to manufacture the facility at Oak Ridge. Like a lot of this government funded, government owned. I mean, it's national security stuff. So some people might look at that and they'll be like, wait, the government, but yeah, it's like you have government support. The Senate from the Manhattan Project. Yeah, it's the government. It's almost like it's not going to go bankrupt. Like that's the great thing about this. The hedge here is phenomenal too. The stuff we saw in 2016 when the stock went down was when there was really not much support. The company's an old company, obviously, like we said, but a lot of things changed here. National security, when we had a big change in the government, right? Look what happened, right? When it looked like there was going to be a change, it did well, right? Long term during this time. And the government now, I think both sides are pretty much going to be supporting nuclear a lot more. As you saw in this, it's bipartisan support. Is it over here? Yeah, we are reestablishing our relationship in peaceful use of nuclear energy. That's from the White House, current administration, bipartisan. DOE nuclear is now still in the largest single source of zero carbon emitting technologies. We want to make sure we keep that on, right? US, the biggest countries, highest GDP in the world, supporting it, right? Some of the highest. France, England, Canada. Japan's a big supporter of restarting a lot of these, so that's really positive. So yeah, this has been a real nice run so far, but we're just getting started. Like, here, guys, we're not even here. We're way over here. Some other things that kind of caught my eye. We're almost done with this, but strong relationships with key next generation SMR developers. Earlier, y'all were talking about like SMR was the only one, but it's like SMR, X Energy. You know, we're talking about TerraPower, Bill Gates, company, Microsoft. That's why, like, these companies, Oklo, KHNP, they're Korean, right? So these LOIs, they literally, the Korean side, 27% of the country's electric power having LOIs, MOUs with TerraPower, which they're going to probably get into production by 2030, right? That's their operation date. Oklo, they're already the reactor there. They're supplying in their Ohio plant, right? And X Energy, that's another one. So the tree cell fuel, that's one of the real cool things. I was talking about that earlier, the tree cell fuel. Meltdown proof, can't melt down. So these are game changers with that. So big names. SMR is not on there because these companies are kind of leading, really, to be honest. So yeah, and some of the companies are private and stuff. But some other cool things. This was something I've seen. So their plant, that's how big it is compared to the Pentagon. It's kind of cool they put this in there. It's kind of, a lot of this stuff is very secretive too. Manhattan Project, but it's literally a monopoly. It's the government won't let it fail. So it's like that's why, like, when this traded at 17, traded 24, I'm like, yeah, definitely gonna buy it. There's no way this is gonna fail. It's not gonna see $1 again. Not in the world we live in now. The world then, since then, crypto, AI, all these things have taken off, right? But 2.5 million per year at this existing processing facility. They can expand to 7 million SWU per year. And remember how much the demand was going to be? We showed you on that, up to like 6.4 billion, I think. And they began the HALEU enrichment back last year in October under the DOE contract. They have different phases, and they already completed phase 1. And they delivered the 20 kilograms, tiny amount, right, of HALEU ahead of schedule and under budget, which is good. Significant progress on the phase 2. That's additional 159 kilograms of HALEU delivered. Sounds small now, but a lot of these are just tests, right? You're just testing the waters, right? Quinn, you said media presence is answered by the fact you haven't heard of them. Oh, that's what you were talking about earlier, the stock. Media presence, that's a big thing. Just because a company, if you can't get out there, you can't. And I don't mean like these stocks, like Centrus Energy shouldn't be doing hundreds of interviews necessarily. They need to work on their production. The CEO, but if he is getting on MSNBC and talking about the nuclear fuel sector, kind of trying to simplify it because it is very boring. If you guys are still watching, you guys are probably going to be the ones that make big money because, you're looking into this type of stuff. And look at this potential 1,000 bagger, right? A 100 bagger yesterday became a 100 bagger in less than 6, 7, 8 years. So, but if it gets to that, just remember, this is going to literally become a 100 bagger or 1,000 bagger status. If it ever gets to that, if they get into production, there's no doubt it's going to be a $15 billion market cap. Easy. And we're just going off the market cap today, like what it is, but easy. If they get a percentage of this market, it's massive, right? It's going to be massive. And then these are the awards. These are the phases. So remember what they were talking about, the phases specifically. Phase 3 is what they're really working on now. And that'll be an option to extend this contracting for up to 9 years, 3 years increments. And if they get this contracting, that's a ton of money, right? And obviously the government, they're helping them out on a lot of this. So, but 9 this is something they highlighted. 9 out of 10 advanced nuclear reactors designed, selected, and I said this earlier, are using funding under the DOE Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program, and they all use HALEU. So there's only one that doesn't. So there you go. You got all these trillion-dollar companies wanting SMRs. There's all the SMRs. What do they need? HALEU. What's the only company going to do it? Centrus. Do you see what I'm saying? Did you see what I was saying when this was $4? Did you see why this is pretty much what the sector I've been talking about? 1,000 bagger, 100,000%. You don't have these like in other sectors, and nobody usually is talking about the stock. Like very rare will someone be talking about the stock when in such an early phase, right? When like you don't really see this, but it's really interesting that we can kind of like see where this is going, that this could 10x still from here. And yeah, this, man, I still can't believe that this is still trading under $100, honestly. I figured in this type of market, when they see trillions of dollars, companies investing in this, and this is the only company, like, I don't see why hedge funds haven't bought $1 billion in shares. I mean, I think they're trying. I think it's just they can't because of the way the share structure is. If they literally tried to buy, you know, like buy out most of the company, right? This would go up. This would probably go up 200-300%. Now, this stock could do that too. I think there's still potentially people shorting it, potentially. Purchases. So Russia was 27% in 2023, 73% other state-owned corporations. So that's shifting. These are all the numbers we already know if you know your aim. 20% of the US is free load based powers, 20% is from nuclear energy. And the global enrichment deficit, because of this Russian supplies absent, is 13 million SWU a year. Russian origin SWU purchases by utilities was 4 million in 2023, 4.1 million SWU. So this is what we've been talking about. I made videos on it. Their prohibition uranium imports ban signed by the president. That was May 13th, 2024. That's why a lot of this happened. Eliminated Russia as a competitor for enriched uranium in the US post 2027. Waivers, obviously they can't cut everything off for the government, obviously can't buy that. Centrus has more for utilities, but Centrus has contingency planning to mitigate near-term disruptions of Russian supply. They've mitigated that risk. Released $2.7 billion in funding to promote the development of the domestic uranium. Centrus is the only NRC licensed producer of HALEU and one of only 2 NRC licensed companies that can enrich LEU. And they're the only ones that sell the HEU to the reactor for the government. Waivers issued to Centrus by DOE. What did I say, guys? What have I been telling you? So waivers granted for Russian supply for 2024 and 2025. Waiver requested for 2026 and 2027, deferred by the DOE to unspecified date, closer deliveries. That's just the way it is. Same thing, like the U.S. government, they're gonna wait, but they've got it out to 2025. So if there's maybe an issue, maybe there'll be they don't get it, then a lot of people might sell. This could drop 50% in a day if they have issues trying to get the waiver, right? Because at that point it's a lot harder to find this stuff, right? And then there's going to be utilities. They're a broker. Utilities are already trying to get the same stuff they're trying to get. So that's the risks. The government could affect our ability to obtain our sources of supply to perform under contract obligations, and that's what it's all about. You know, that's why this is like this. Yeah, when I did all these videos 2 years ago,